makeup from the library, and then it was just an evolution, you know, to the point where I started doing local commercials here in town, you know, adjusting local hosts, horror show hosts, toupee, and making his eyes look closer together. It's just stuff like that. I even have a son. I named my son Lon after Lon Chaney. I mean, I really lost it for this guy. He's my inspiration. He was my idol, okay? From that day on, I was building a makeup kit and, you know, stocking it with great supplies and getting more professional at it. When I was growing up, my father was very old at the time. He was 50 when I was born, see. So by the time I was 13, you know, he was like 63. So I have four brothers and a sister. And as I was growing up, my one brother was a physical person, so I copied him. I lifted weights, you know, and I wanted to be football, and so I wanted to be like that brother. Another brother would fence. He'd be fencing in the backyard with my other brothers, you know. So that gave me my interest in fencing, okay, so I was copying him. This same brother was studying at the time to be a mortician. He isn't now. He's a postal official, but I would see him in the basement sculpting Egyptian heads and stuff like that. So my interest in art, okay, started then. I started sculpting in clay and painting clay and then painting canvases and stuff like that, and sketching, you know. So my brothers, I had 4 fathers when I was growing up, you know. My brothers were really had great influence on me as far as where my interest started flowing at that time, you know. I have another brother who was just crazy, you know. His sense of humor floored me. He was cracking me up all the time. Would take out his teeth and mess up his hair and wiggle his ears, you know. Crazy. So then, you know, I wanted to be like him. So all these things, I guess you could say I'm a composite of my brothers. I don't, you know, I mean, who am I, you know? Where am I? Who is the real Tom Savini? Or where am I? You know, I'm somewhere within all that, I think, you know. The first movie I ever did effects for was the thing called, at the time it was called The Veteran. The title changed about 4 or 5 times from that. Now it's called Death Dream. Did that in Florida. I was sitting in a bar one day, and this guy was sitting there with a beard, interesting-looking guy, and we were just talking about what we did in life, and he was an art director for this film company, and I said, hey, I'm a makeup artist, you know, and I just happened to have my portfolio in the car. I showed it to him, and a month later, he hired me. Then they hired me to do another film after that in Canada called Deranged. Now, this guy is Bob Clark, who has gone on to do Murder by Decree, Silent Night, Holy Night, a lot of horror films, okay? Murder by Decree, I think, is his first non-horror film. But those are the first 2 films I ever did, and then I didn't do any for a long time.
2 years ago, Pittsburgh's Monroeville Mall was invaded by a host of zombies in one of Tom's most recent assignments, Dawn of the Dead, the brainchild of local director George Romero. This time, Tom added the roles of actor, stuntman, and special effects director to that of makeup artist.
There's a lot of things that aren't in the script, you know. A lot of effects that have been done to the dead weren't in the script. We would sit around at night and think of various ways to kill people, which was my job, you know. There's all these zombies in Dawn of the Dead killing people off. So they had to be interesting and build, you know, as they went along. So my job was to sit around and think of ways to kill people. So I would think of things like, what if we drive an umbrella up a guy's throat or something, you know, and I would go up to George Romero and say, hey, George, we had this idea. How about if we take a screwdriver or something and stick it in somebody's ear or just something like that, you know, and George would go, okay. So we went to this hardware store and I got 3 screwdrivers and cut them at various lengths, took a soda straw and painted it silver and stuck it on one of the screwdrivers so it looked like it was part of the screwdriver, but this screwdriver just only had about 1 inch of a blade on it. And it would slide into the straw, see. So you would see the real screwdriver heading down toward the guy's head. We would cut to a close-up of the fake screwdriver or the half screwdriver in the soda straw. It would retract into that. Then we cut to a screwdriver that big, which was the finished screwdriver in the guy's ear. At one point in there, though, I had a soda straw, and there was tubing going into the soda straw, pumping blood. So all you saw was a soda straw coming out of the guy's ear, and my hand was covering the tubing, and the blood came out. Then we cut to the small screwdriver stuck in the guy's ear after that. But on camera, in continuity, it looks like one continuous action.
In this scene, we actually see Tom execute another special effect.
Say goodbye, creep. I took a machete, and, well, first of all, I took a piece of solder and placed it on the guy's head that the machete was going to hit. And I formed it to his head, so I had, like, if I pulled it off a silhouette, a profile of the guy. I traced that on the machete, and then I had a welder cut the machete, that form out of the machete, so the machete would fit over the guy's head like this, so it would look like it's deeply embedded into his face. Then we did reverse photography of me pulling the machete out. So on camera, what you see is me doing this violent movement with the machete, then a close-up of the reverse action of the machete hitting the guy's head, okay? It was actually being pulled out. And there was blood and tubing into the guy's head for a close-up of the machete in there and blood coming out.
In Dawn of the Dead, hundreds of zombies are put to death in this fashion. Tom demonstrates his technique.
This is Tassos Stavrakis, my stunt partner, fencing partner, assistant special effects. And I'm going to shoot him in the forehead with a bullet. The blood is going to flow. What I've done so far is attached a piece of surgical tubing to his forehead with some medical adhesive. And I'm concealing it now with mortician's wax. This is only to be done, it has to be done quickly. Normally, I would prepare him by making a cast of his face and using a plastic substance that is far thinner than this mortician's wax is going to be. But for just a demonstration, quickly, I'm going to use this mortician's wax. This is a regular button from my sewing box. Attaching fish line to this. And I'm going to implant this beneath this buildup of mortician's wax just under the tubing. Okay. Yeah. Then I'll conceal the button with mortician's wax. So, what makes you see the hole appear on Tassos' forehead is me pulling out this button, at the same time pumping blood through the tubing. Everything that I'd like to do, I was able to do in Dawn of the Dead, okay? And I've never done that type of effect before, and like I said, the fun is in creating and inventing those things, okay? Plus, ever since Dawn of the Dead, I'm getting scripts in the mail now, you know? Dawn of the Dead was the big recognition thing for me. I mean, it's a nationwide thing. People see it, and because there are so many effects in Dawn of the Dead, the attention, of course, as far as producers go or movie makers go, is we got to get this guy, you know, to do the effects, you know? George Romero and I go back a long time. When I was in high school here at Central Catholic, he was doing a film called Wine of the Fawn, which never got off the ground. He was going around to high schools looking for talent, okay? And out of all the actors at Central, you know, in plays we were doing, he picked me and another guy, Greg Lehane. We went down to the studio, we had a screen test, and that was that. Nothing ever happened, okay? Years later, when I was in the first college I ever went to, I heard that George was doing a film called Night of the Living Dead. I went over there, the elevator door opened, George was standing right there, because that's where the elevator opens into the office. I said, hi, he remembered me from the high school thing. I think he even remembered my name, okay? So I said, hi, I do makeup, you know, now, and blah, 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 blah. He said, fine, bring me some pictures, and maybe we can use you, okay? The Army, I enlisted on the hold program, so just as I was about to do that, I was called in. I went to the Army, Vietnam. I was in Vietnam when he did Night of the Living Dead. When I came back, I met the floor manager of this station, Nicky Tallo, who was working a box office at the Lab Theater here in town. He said, hey, you know, George is doing another movie, a vampire movie. I said, great. I went down to see George to play the vampire. They had already cast the vampire. I brought my portfolio, and he saw it, hired me 3 days later to do the makeup. I wound up doing some stunts, playing a part in the movie, and the special effects. Then I left. I did a play in Carolina. I got a telegram from George, and it simply said, Tom, we have another gig, call me. I called George, a la Dawn of the Dead. The people that I'm most impressed with as far as the special effects field, there's only a few of them. Number one, though, I want to give credit to Lon Chaney again, the silent screen actor that we talked about. He was the beginning of my influence and the reason I went into this. Number two would have to be Dick Smith. Dick Smith, as far as I'm concerned, is the god of makeup, the god of special effects. He's the master. Dick Smith has done The Exorcist, The Godfather, 1 and 2, Midnight Cowboy, the Dustin Hoffman age makeup in Little Big Man, the 121-year-old man. He's the greatest influence. I have everything ever written about him. I mean, I try to have everything ever written about him, and I study if I see his picture in a magazine, I take out a magnifying glass and I study his shelves and trying to read the labels on the things he has just to get some sort of secrets. I just spent a day with him at his house, and we exchanged such information. He's a wonderful man. He loves to pass on information, and that's a rarity, you know. Another guy is Rick Baker. Rick Baker did The Fury. He did Cecily Tyson in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, and as Dick Smith thinks that he is going to outdo him someday. I talked about my visit to Dick Smith. He told us a story about when he was doing Taxi Driver. He had things like this planted all over a guy's face, and a guy gets shot in the face about 4 or 5 times. And he had all these little pieces of monofilament coming out of those little holes. He would pull them. There were hollow foam latex pieces filled with blood on the guy's face, and when he pulled the plugs, the blood would come out, giving the impression the guy was being shot. Plus the face would go in like this, see? So he had the guy all neatly prepared with the monofilament bobby pin to his hair, and the guy's girlfriend comes in and he says, "Oh dear, you have a little thing here," and she pulled it and the blood came out. But I haven't been doing special effects all my life. In fact, I was surprised when I started doing it to see that I was doing it, first of all, that I could do it. You know, I started out with just your basic makeup, you know, making people look prettier on stage or for a camera, you know, for commercials or something like that. Then I started getting into monster magazines like Famous Monsters of Filmland. I have every issue of that since 1958. So I would take a picture or two from a new issue or something and try to duplicate that makeup, some monster makeup. So I wound up doing monster stuff a lot because it was more of a challenge there. It was three-dimensional stuff and not just making somebody's own face look pretty. So what happens there is it's like a painter or, you know, like an artist. You have this, an artist works with a canvas, and so do I. Anybody's face is a canvas for me. It's a three-dimensional canvas, which is already an advantage for me, you know. The fun is creating and inventing. Like, I've never torn somebody's arm out. I've never had to make a bullet hit somebody's head, you know. So now I got to figure out how to do this. And so the way I do it is I think of the movie screen, okay, and what exactly we're going to see on that movie screen. So then I think how to create what you see, okay. And that's where the magic is, because just as magic, professional magicians rely on mechanical devices to fool you that you have no idea, you know, how they're built or, you know, what their function is. All you see when a magician does something to you or performs a trick for you is the trick, the finished result, the effect, okay? That's all I do. So far, Tasso, the victim here, has a button planted within the mortician's wax on his forehead. Also beneath the mortician's wax and close to the button is this surgical tubing attached to this rectal syringe, which is filled with blood. So what would normally happen is you would see the gunshot or hear the gunshot, the hole will appear, and the blood will flow. So now we're ready to execute the effect. I will pull this fish line out and squeeze this tubing at the same time. Whoa! People think I'm, it ranges, you know, weird, sick, you know, all these things. It's just my job, you know. I mean, like, I tell everybody that knows me, or that even doesn't, that don't know me, when they see my stuff, my portfolio, they see all this blood and gore and people coming apart and sick zombies and stuff like that. I tell them right off the bat that, you know, I can create beauty. I can, you know. I mean, I started off doing beauty. But there seems to be more of a call now for ugly. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been hired for, you know. But I'm a queasy person myself. If it were real blood, I don't think I could stand it. I'm actually a gentle person. I mean, I'm a sensitive person, and I'm a queasy person. You hold up a spider, you can have anything I have, you know. I'm scared of spiders, you know, so I'm not a sick person.
More stage blood and a common drain pipe attached to a piece of wood were the ingredients for the gory death of the vampire in Martin.
Your soul is damned, Nosferatu.
There's 3 of us under the bed, pumping blood from rectal syringes at various places in Martin's, underneath Martin's pajamas. So when the stake does go in, and I'll explain how that goes in a second. But so when the stake does go in, blood starts bleeding everywhere toward the camera under his shirt in various places. The stake was actually driven into a drain pipe that I had around my house that I attached to a piece of wood, and it was like alongside him here, filled with sand. The establishing shot is the stake over his heart. You see the stake over his heart, just before the hammer comes down to pound the stake. So in your mind, as far as you're concerned, the stake is still over his heart. But we sheeted it over into this drain pipe, see? Now, I was activating two syringes at the same time, one in my right hand and one in my left. The one in my left was controlling blood in the shirt, but the one in my right hand was controlling blood that would shoot out alongside his arm here, where the stake goes in. The first time we did it, the blood was like Yellowstone Park. It went straight up and shot and hit the ceiling, and it was just it was a bad take. So we had to clean up the whole room. Second take, it was good. The stake went in to the drain pipe, and blood splashed on the guy's hands against him, and it worked. And we had two camera angles of that. But the stake actually went into a drain pipe. Then we cut away to a longer shot of a smaller stake on a piece of tin on the guy, glued to the guy's chest, covered with wax and blood everywhere. And again, in continuity in the scene, it looks like the stake went all the way in, and there it was. When I'm doing stunts, I try to put in as many safety precautions as possible, and you learn by making mistakes. I mean, I've learned everything I've learned the hard way, it seems, you know, by doing it, making a mistake first. As far as stunts go, I try to see what exactly is going to happen to my body all the way through there, you know, and I wear a lot of stunt pads depending on who I'm substituting for. If their costume doesn't allow for that, then if I'm going to hit something, a car or a floor or a wall, then I'll put padding there, you know. But usually I like to wear lots of paddings and protect my back. I did a stunt once where the only thing I didn't cover was my right knee, okay? The only thing that got hurt was my right knee. I did a stunt once for George in Martin where I was hit by a car. So the camera shows me getting shot in the leg, and it pulls back to this car, zooming right at me. So just before the car hits me, I jump off the ground and just start rolling. I didn't have any sophisticated stunt padding there, but I took sheets of foam and carved it to my body. But the only place I didn't cover was one of my kidneys back here. The only place that got hurt was my kidney back here. In high school, I was a gymnast in high school, and I continued on into one of the colleges that I went to, okay? When you're a gymnast, it makes you unafraid of the ground. And once you're in that state, you know, it's easy. In Dawn of the Dead, George Romero, who was the director of that, said he was going to hire a stuntman from New York to do the stunts that I read about in the script. I said, I can do this stuff, you know. He says, well, I don't know, you know, I guess he really didn't know what I could do. I mean, there were things like driving a motorcycle through a store window, falling off balconies, getting set on fire. I said, I can do all this stuff, you know. So when the time came to do it, they hadn't gotten the act together enough to get a stuntman, and so I wound up doing it. The stunt in Dawn of the Dead where I go over the railing, it's my death, actually. It's the death of Blades, the character that I played. It was about a 3-story fall, and you see me wind up in the fountain after that, okay? What we did was, I just took a running dive off a bench over the balcony at the mall, and I dove into 2 layers of cardboard boxes and 2 mattresses. Now, the first time I did it, I overshot everything. My head was protected because it hit the edge of the mattresses, but my feet came down and just whiplashed, boom, into the floor. And I couldn't walk, you know. But I made them carry me back up there and throw me off again, because a long time ago I had a gymnastics coach who, after I was doing giant swings and accidentally left the bar and smashed into the wall, nose was bleeding and everything, I was ready to give it up. He said, go right back up there right now and do it, or you'll never do it again in your whole life. So that's stuck with me. So when I got hurt, I went back up, did it again. After my feet healed, 2 weeks later, I was in the costume again, and I put 3 layers of cardboard boxes and another mattress and extended, and there was no way I could miss. You know, I could have jumped off in Bloomfield and hit it. So that was a supreme safety, you know, measure for myself.
There's one question Tom says he's inevitably asked.
Why am I not on my way to Hollywood and trying to make a career out there, okay? That's been my dream since I was 8 years old. I used to listen to Disneyland records and dream about going to California and working for Walt Disney, or just being in that fantasy situation, you know. And I've been trying to get there. I've never been there, to California. I've been trying to get there, you know, all this time, because that's where I think my career would, you know, go, because there aren't many people who do, you know, what I do. There are a few great ones, you know. I don't consider myself up there as far as their talent, but I think that's where it could begin. What happened is Hollywood came to Pittsburgh for me, you know, with George Romero and his films. And because of Dawn of the Dead, I'm getting scripts in the mail now from all over, Ohio, New York. I haven't gotten any from California yet, but that could possibly happen, and then I'll go out there and do a film. There's something coming up for me in Colombia, South America, that I will definitely go down and do, you know. But being in Pittsburgh doesn't affect that, because that's what Richard Rubenstein and George Romero have been saying all this time. You don't have to be in Hollywood or New York to make big movies, feature movies, you know. There's no reason why you can't do it anywhere.
A boys' camp in the Pocono Mountains is the setting for Tom's latest film, Friday the 13th, in which a number of counselors are being mysteriously murdered by an unknown prowler.
So my job in that film was to, as in Dawn of the Dead, think of ways to kill people. In Friday the 13th, once the killer is revealed, there's only one counselor left in the film. And she almost gets roughed up, but she's able to circumstances to protect herself from this prowler who has been such a killer. I mean, you cannot escape this person. The strength that this person has and the means with which this person kills people. So the end of the film is one fight after another, one chair jumper after another, leading up to the killer's death. And it's pretty grisly. She's beheaded. But I cast this person's head, and with plaster of Paris, prepared her first, you know, and I cast with plaster of Paris and made a mold. You can see there's a piece of foam along her head to separate the front half from the back half. I'm about to cover her face with alginate, which is a dental material that dentists use to make impressions of your teeth. It dries in 2 minutes, then you give it a plaster backing. Here we are putting the plaster backing on the back half of her head. Then I will remove this foam and do the front half. That's the plaster backing now that you see along her head. The foam is removed, and I'm taking this drill and drilling in keys, which are just holes along the edge of the back plaster half, so that when I put the front half on, it fills those holes up and gives me a keys all around it, so that when the front and the back are connected, they're connected more solidly because the keys hold them together. The alginate is already on her. This is the plaster backing that's going on the alginate front, connected to the back plaster portion. Her head is totally encased now in plaster and alginate, and she's breathing through 2 tiny holes where her nostrils are. I'm using a butter knife, I think, there to separate the front half of the plaster and alginate from the plaster backing. And here she is coming out of it. She's been under this now for nearly an hour. She said it was a very enjoyable experience. It's like having a face mask, and it's like having your senses suspended temporarily. And here we are holding the finished front mold. I don't know if you can see any detail in the front, but that's the negative impression of her face. And from that I made a shoulder and head out of foam latex. This was attached to the back of Tasso's shoulders, and he tucked his head down inside this sweater. And the blood tubing was attached inside the neck, and I actually did the cutting of the head myself because the actress who played it wouldn't have been able to get it the first time, and I knew I could. So I'm off camera with a syringe in my hand and a machete, and the close-up is simply on the head of this lady who assumes this face when she's attacking the counselor, and I cast her with the same face, see? So the real person is attacking this counselor. We cut to the girl swinging the machete. Then we go to the fake head of the person, the killer, with me with the syringe and the machete, and I cut it off, and it did a beautiful thing. It left the neck and shoulder relationship. It tilted, fell down on top of the neck, and then flipped off while blood was flowing out, and Tasso's hands came up into the frame and quivered like this. Then it went out of frame. Now, this is the way it was prepared. Again, Tasso, you turn around for the camera. The shoulders, keep going. The shoulders and the neck are fastened back here so that we could get the live action of hands coming up into the frame and gyrating when the head is removed. Thank you very much. When I think back on myself and wonder, how did I get into all these things at once? I think I was just absolutely bored when I was a kid. Like, there were times when I would take my makeup kit and put it up in the attic and not even touch it for like a year. I would get involved in something else, like fencing or photography or something, you know. But I would always go back up there and get my makeup kit out and play with it. Somewhere deep inside me, that was, you know, the one main love, I guess, that I had. Along with doing the special effects in these films, I've been doing the stunts. And a lot of times I've been staging fights between people. And so I'm continuing to do that. I have a film coming up in New York called Maniac, where I'm playing a part, acting. I'm executing the special effects, a special effects credit. I'm doing a stunt credit. And I'm staging a fight between some people. And that's, you know, 4 things that I do that I'm going to be able to do, you know. That's what I like. I like doing everything, you know, at the same time. I don't know if I want to be just into one thing. As far as scary stuff goes, when I was a kid, you know, I used to be scared to death. A lot of stuff I saw. I used to hide my eyes, but then hide them like this. Because even though I was afraid, I had to see. Because I might want to duplicate this in my bedroom someday. It's hard for me when somebody says, listen, you're 32, you're a grown man. What are you doing this stuff? I mean, grown people actually, you know, doing this stuff, you know. That somehow doesn't click into my computer. I don't think of myself as a number of how many years I've been on Earth, you know. It's like, I still feel like I'm the 13-year-old kid that opened this horror magazine and wanted to get involved with makeup. I think it's my attitude about just never wanting to grow up, you know. Getting involved with, you know, fantasy all the time, you know. I'd rather be involved in fantasy, and, you know, I've suffered because of that as far as, you know, personal relationships and things like that, but I would much rather be where I am because I'm happy there.